This was my identity.
Nobody talks about how freaking hard it is to be a dentist. What most people talk about is how this affects the patient. What nobody talks about is how this affects us. Dentistry is ready for this. Now is really the time.
Welcome to Wellness and Dentistry, where today we're going to talk all about why dentists struggle to unplug and how to reclaim rest. Super exciting topic, somewhat maybe even controversial one that we're about to get into. I'm joined by my good friend and my co-host, Dr. Kyle Stanley, who is a dentist, tech entrepreneur, speaker, and researcher. And my name is Dr. Martin Mendelson. I'm a disabled dentist, coach, speaker, and author. Combine those two together.
You can be a
And my
coach
first
too.
and my first book, One Move Makes All the Difference, is available wherever books are sold. And together, my buddy and I have helped thousands of dental professionals pursue wellness and dentistry. And look, if you're unfamiliar with us, go ahead and check out our respective links, websites, and course offerings on our combined website, wellnessanddentistry.com, including information about our next upcoming live experience, Lightside Live, that's being sponsored by MB2 and the Carabelli Club, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, April 10th and 11th of this year. So
Dallas.
in Dallas, yes, we got to remember that part. Central part of the country, central south, not that
Easy
hard
to
to
get
get
to.
to. Yep, very easy to get to. So we're going to talk about reclaiming, peace and quiet, taking time off, all that kind of good stuff. What say you, Dr. Stanley?
Vacations are a controversial topic for dentists.
Yes.
And I think it's because most dentists practice alone.
Yeah.
My dad was one of these, and
Yeah.
I was just telling him recently how much I appreciate our vacations more. I mean, I
Yeah.
always loved going on vacation with my family, and that's really my best memories, I think, in life are going on vacation with my family.
Hmm.
But now appreciating like what he was giving up because
Yeah.
he's a single practitioner, so he closes
Yep.
practice.
Yep.
So not only is he paying for our vacation, but he was also taking the potential earned, right? The
Yeah. Yeah.
opportunity cost was going away. And
Yep.
sometimes he was paying his assistants, sometimes he was not paying his assistants. And it's challenging to take a vacation when you are a sole practitioner. And I feel like I know so many that buy a practice or start a practice from scratch and they're 10 years in and they say, I've never taken a vacation.
Mhm. Yeah. Which is I'm going to choose to use the word sad because
Yeah.
no one's been on their deathbed and said, I wish I worked another day.
Yeah.
Like that's not what happens. And
And
so,
dentistry is so challenging
yeah,
that I don't think this is a job that you can do without taking some time off.
no. And I heard something, and I haven't even gotten a chance to tell you this yet. I've started following this gentleman on Instagram and YouTube who's a financial planner. And he said something that I thought was very interesting about retirement that I also think is applicable to vacation. And what he says is you need to retire to something and not from something.
Oh, I like that.
And he backed it up with data because he
Mm,
said those that retire and just stop, 40% have incidents of depression, clinical
yeah.
depression. And I don't remember the number, but it was also double digits, end up getting critically ill within
Wow.
5 years of retirement without something, I'll use the phrase, to do. And so I thought to myself, couldn't we extrapolate this about vacations? And I actually had a conversation with a coaching client this morning about are we taking vacation to something or from something?
Hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Isn't it wild? Because if
It,
we take it from something, that's when the Sunday scaries come up.
hmm
Because if you're always trying to escape, and we could also extrapolate that to substances, if
hmm
you're always trying to escape, then it's going to create that stress for you because you're running from something instead of to something.
Well, I think one of the big problems that I see that dentists do, and I was one of these too, is not planning ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. 100%.
So saying, well, I'll take a vacation when I get to this point, or I'll take a vacation when I do this, and then that point comes, and you kind of go, okay, well,
Hmm.
I'm booked out now, so I can't
Yeah.
really do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And vacation should be planned, or I'm saying vacation loosely. This could be
Yeah.
time off, you do nothing, you stay at your house and hang out,
Mhm.
or you travel and go
Mhm.
with your family, do something. But we should be able to know our numbers so well
Correct.
that we can look ahead and say, here's how much I want to make. Here's what my overhead is. Here's how much I produce a day or a month or a week. And then extrapolate out and say, okay, well, in that case, I can work 50 weeks a year or 48 weeks a year,
Mhm.
whatever it is
Yeah.
for you, maybe
Yeah.
51 if you're starting. But then you plan that and say, okay,
Yeah.
my kids are out of school at this time. We're gonna go July 22nd, whatever. And it's planned and it's there and it's set forth with that proper planning ahead.
And so then the next question they typically ask is, well, how do I pay my team?
Yeah.
And my answer to that is, if we have looked at the numbers correctly, you've already answered the question. So what do I mean by that? If
Yeah.
you
What do you
know
mean by
how
that?
much you want to make and you know what your expenses are, including payroll, then you already know that answer. And so paying your team while you're away, if that's what you choose to do, is already in your plan,
I
right?
see. So you're saying if you choose to pay your team when you're gone, you've
Correct.
already budgeted for that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
Yeah,
and one of the nice things about having it pre-planned is that your team could take a vacation too.
absolutely.
And now
Absolutely.
I know that there's going to be team members or there's going to be dentists that are going to say, yeah, but they don't have the choice when they want.
Right.
And I would say, well, then they should start their own business.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
it's like, well, that's not when my kids are off school. I'm like,
Well, but
I'm sorry.
I think that brings in a good point though, and a good opportunity to talk about compromise. So I don't have children, and if I were to own a practice today, I can guarantee you that my vacations would be pre-planned, and the first thing I would look at is when are the school breaks in my community. That would be the first thing I would look at. Because why would I make it more difficult for the 4 to 10 to 15, however many team members you have that have children? Like, why would I go out of my way to make that a problem? Like, do you really care that you go to Puerto Vallarta, the week of March 15th versus April 17th? Like, do you really
Let
care?
me give you a devil's advocate on that.
Okay,
Okay.
please.
My parents, okay, so this is after we were all grown up and out of the house,
Yeah.
but my dad was still working. They would always travel in October.
Okay.
And it's because everything was cheap.
Okay.
Nothing was,
Okay.
full. So it was like prime time for them to travel in October.
Hmm.
Now, all of their team members, if they had children that were still living with them, my dad at that time had more older
Hmm.
team members that had been with him for a long time, but they were in school. And so it probably wouldn't be a great time
Hmm.
to have vacation.
Hmm. Hmm. So, what's your question then?
Well, I guess I'm saying, is that just looked at as selfish? Because,
Yeah. Well,
you know,
the October thing, is that looked at as being selfish?
yeah.
Yes and no. I mean, look, at the end of the day, what I said was this is what I would do.
Hmm.
Now, what I would do isn't what I would expect somebody else is going to do. And if they
Right.
have reasons that they want to take time off in October, well, fine. Maybe their spouse is in a kind of a job. Okay, let's do it this way. Let's pretend that your spouse is an accountant.
Okay.
And April 16th every year, all they want to do is go sit on a beach.
Right.
But your community's spring break is typically in March. Well,
Yeah.
in April, because that makes sense. That's
Yeah.
important. So
Hmm.
no, I wouldn't say it was selfish. What I would
Yeah.
say is there are things that we need to take into consideration, and that therefore may inform you of how you want to do this. Meaning, are you going to be the kind of practice that when the doctor's off, everybody's off? Or are you going
Hmm.
to be the kind of practice when the doctor's off, the team is still working? So, all
Yeah.
of those things play into how you want to play this game of when doctor's off, what happens?
And that's a good example too, because there's different states in the US we're
Yep.
talking about that have different laws
Yep.
to where if like you need direct, I forget what it's called. It's like direct supervision, indirect
Right.
supervision.
Right.
So if you're a practice, I mean, if it were my practice and you're in a state where you cannot be there and you
Hmm.
can still have
Yep.
hygiene and they could still give injections,
Hmm.
then I would say do it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because that's the ultimate business. The ultimate business is you're on vacation and the
Yeah.
business is still going, which is honestly what most businesses are
Right.
like. Because
Right.
most small businesses are not that the owner is doing most of the
Right.
physical work, right?
And
Like if you own a small business that does air conditioning repair, you probably have a bunch of people that work for you that fix air
hmm
conditioning. You're probably not out there fixing the air conditioning. You're probably
yeah.
running the business. So you can
Yeah.
take time off
Yeah.
and let that still continue. And so if you can do that, then I would say great because your team may want to
Mhm.
work. Oh, let me talk about this. I just thought of something.
For those of you not watching us at the same time, you should have seen Kyle. He got this look of like, oh my gosh, wait a minute. Yeah.
Yes, I just had this epiphany that I think you and I have talked about in private, but I don't know if we've talked about in public before, is assuming that your team also wants to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think this comes from the real numbers that our team is
Yeah.
not in the same income level that we are at.
Yeah.
And we assume that they need every dollar and cents and they would rather work every day possible.
Yep.
And that is true that we're usually in different income brackets.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't assume that your team doesn't want to take time off.
Correct.
Because I know many times that my dad would take time off and his team, because I would be in there, or even when we were working
Hmm.
together, that they would say, "Oh, we're so happy that Dr. Stanley's going, to
Yeah.
Hawaii next week." And like we can just like be home. I've got so much stuff I have to do. I got to catch up on laundry and I've got to
Oh.
like, I need to go to the doctor and they need to do stuff too. So
Mhm.
the best way to do that is to not assume and
Yeah.
to ask.
And
Now
and I
you're
also think,
ultimately making the decision, but it's like you said with timing is be realistic and take that into account.
yeah, I think the other thing I hear all the time is twofold. One, um, all of a sudden three people are off at once and we don't have enough people to run the practice. Well, that's a leadership problem, folks, and I say that with love because there has to be standards in place because this is like any business. This is like a security company. This is like the police. This is like crane operators. This is like movers. Like dentistry is no different than anything else, folks. Sorry to burst your bubble. And so there has to be expectations set in place in writing in the form of an employee manual for people to understand how this works. And so that's the first thing. So leadership around expectations that are in writing. The second thing I hear relative to point number one is yeah, but this one time we had this happen, blah, blah, blah. I see so often people attempting to lead toward the exception versus the rule
Hmm.
that it gets us into trouble. And then we become, a deer in the headlights and we do nothing because we're so worried about that one time 5 years ago when we had a problem.
Right. Yeah, let's fall back on our systems
Correct.
and then deal with exceptions when they come. And
Correct.
one that just came to my mind was like, you tell your team members that this is probably the best time for them this year to take time off,
Mhm.
but then your hygienist comes to you and says, my dad just got diagnosed with cancer and I need to go
Exactly.
help with his treatment and I need to be gone for a week. Like, okay, then you say
Bingo.
okay, right?
Yeah, yeah. Or the team member's spouse is in a sales role in a company and he or she just won the president's trip and it happens to be
Right.
the same week. What are you gonna do? Say no?
Hmm.
Like, and how often is that gonna happen? And
Yeah.
so again, uh, it kind of goes to what I teach, team framework, thoughts, emotions, actions, manifestations, and you start jumping to catastrophe, and it's like, well, how true is that? How true is it that this is always a problem? Oh, wait, the last 5 years we haven't had a problem. Oh, okay. So then how are we going to deal with it? You know what the other thing I want to talk about though is what to do while you're away and your team is still working,
Great topic. Let's go.
right? So let's talk about that, and then we definitely need to go into the mindset of taking the time off and coming back in, you
Yeah.
know, reducing the Sunday scaries and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So we have to communicate our expectations about what's going to be done while we're gone. And are there teams that are self-directed? Sure. Do I think most team members are good people? 100%. While at the same time, if you're a leader, you need to communicate what you expect to be done while you're away and ask for them to follow up and follow through to tell you that that stuff was done.
Yeah, it'd be great if it's measurable as well.
Exactly. Like we're gonna revamp the lab and do XYZ. We're gonna revamp the storage cabinet or closets and do P, D, and Q. We're going to go for Dentrix or Weave or Mango training, and we're gonna learn how to do X, Y, and Z. Like it's got to be definitive, right?
Hmm.
Because I even had an example, one of my clients that was kind of the opposite, where the employee was trying to do too good of a job. So this individual did go on vacation. They had a team member that was newly tasked because they requested it to be in charge of social media.
Hmm.
So the person was texting the doctor on vacation about the social media stuff. And the doctor got frustrated about that. And my first question to this person was, what expectations did you set with this person when you left on vacation?
Exactly.
And the answer was, I didn't.
Hmm.
And what kudos to my client, because one of the first things they said was, I know this person is just trying to do a good job because they volunteered to do this and they really wanted to show me they were doing it. I was like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And don't bother me unless somebody's on fire or bleeding while I'm on vacation, right?
Yeah.
So it's as you teach, it's communications, expectations, and boundaries,
Hmm.
right? We do not call the doctor, because I know you hear this all the time too. Do not call the doctor on vacation for anything other than an absolute emergency that you then therefore define.
Hmm.
I mean, how many times have you heard that over and over and over
Yeah.
again?
Yeah, all the time.
You know?
But you're exactly right that most doctors leave and don't set the expectation, and they assume that their
Yeah,
team knows that.
yeah, yeah. And they feel, and I understand this. They feel that they're being an asshole
Hmm.
if they call the person on it.
Right.
And what I would say is something that one of my mentors taught me, which was assertive is not aggressive.
Mm.
And so if you have set the expectations that listen, I don't want to be called except for this, this, and this, and your let's just pick on office manager because it's easy. Your office manager calls and says, we really need to talk about the refund for Mrs. Jones. It's like, okay, thanks for, you know, you could argue you should or shouldn't say thanks for reaching out, but
Yeah.
whatever. It's like, so how does this fall into the category of communication that we discussed before I left?
Hmm.
And you could be as simple as that.
Yeah.
And that's not being an asshole. That is setting boundaries based on the expectations you set, based on your communication of those communications,
Yeah.
of those expectations, excuse me. So it's something we don't often do.
I want to talk about how do you disconnect mentally? Because this is a
Yeah.
problem that a lot of people have, especially because you can go on your phone and
Yeah.
go log into your
Yeah.
practice management system now.
Mhm.
You could look at your Pearl through your
Yeah.
phone. You could
Yeah.
look
Yeah.
at x-rays. Are they taking the x-rays well? You could,
Yeah.
like in my practice, we could even log in and look at the video and say, are they actually
Hmm.
sweeping and what are they
Yeah.
doing? Are they on their phone?
Yeah.
How do you
I,
mentally
yeah.
disconnect
I
with that?
think part of the mental unplugging has to do with understanding what your triggers are.
Okay.
So if your triggers are looking at the numbers, if your triggers are your email, if your triggers are whatever. Now, just to say with a grain of salt, this is all relative, assuming you have somebody to cover for you, etc. Hopefully you do, even if you're a single practitioner,
Yeah.
so that you can take an unplugged a bit of time off. But once you understand what your triggers are, particularly relative to what's on your phone, one of the things that I do, because one of my triggers is email. I don't know why, it just is. So what I do is I remove the Outlook app, that's where my business email comes from, off of my home screen. And I don't look at it. And I turn notifications off so it doesn't bother me, right? Um, I also turn notifications off from my calendar. Why? Because my calendar is blocked out, and for some reason, it keeps giving me notifications that I'm out of the
Even
office.
though you're
It's like I
blacked
know
out.
that.
Yeah.
It's like I know that.
Yeah.
So those are my triggers, and that's how I handle it. So you're basically taking the willpower element out of it, if you will. Because for most people, if you say to yourself, well, I'm just not going to look at it, and then all of a sudden you notice you went from 10 notifications to 37, now all of a sudden you're going to be like freaking out over what that might be. So I think that it's identifying what your triggers are and taking the steps to remove those triggers to the best of your ability, right? And if you're gonna say to me, well, I have to be available, then I'm gonna go back to the first thing, which is setting or communicating your expectations and boundaries with your team so that they understand when and only when they can or should contact you.
I think there's a mindset that we have to change, which is dentistry is so darn important.
Yeah,
We live in this world of dentistry where we're measuring in microns and the bite has to be perfect
yeah,
and the margins are amazing and the color has to be great. But when you think about it, like very few times do we have true dental emergencies. It's like
it's true.
Ludwig's angina, and hopefully none of your patients are going to get to that level unless
Yep.
you haven't seen them for 10 years.
Yeah.
But even so, let's say it is Ludwig's angina. You have oral surgeons and you have other specialists,
Mhm.
endodontists. Like I know when my dad went away, he always had endodontists that would cover for him. And
Exactly.
it's like, even if someone's like, oh, my crown fell off, you can wait like 4 days to get a crown put on.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know,
No, it's yeah.
it
And
doesn't
and
have to be right now today.
let's talk about that a little bit because what's that book that I just bought? Unreasonable Hospitality. Is that the
Oh,
book?
yeah. Yeah.
Um, and you want to provide really, really great services for your patients, and
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. While at the same time, your patients know, at least intellectually, that you're a human being as
Yeah.
well. And so, what kind of message does it send when you keep rolling over to see? You know what? I have a really good example. So this just hit me. This is probably one of the best examples ever, I think. So
I'm excited to hear it.
my general dentist is also a close personal friend. For a whole host of reasons, he's not the one that prepped or placed my veneers.
Mhm.
I actually had that done before I was seeing him on a regular basis, but I've been seeing him now for 5, 7 years. I had a veneer come off,
Mhm.
and so I texted him, and uh, you know what was happening that day?
Hmm.
He was having a baby with his wife.
No. Oh my gosh.
And he literally said, under normal circumstances, I would, but I really can't because I'm at the hospital, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my God, don't worry about it. And then later he was like, well, maybe I could come in tomorrow. I'm like, no, no, no.
Yeah.
And so, I went and I had it re-cemented by somebody else in
Yeah.
town. But I think that's a good example, don't you think?
I have a good example of that too, and it's funny. It's around having a baby. When
Yeah.
we were having my son came about 4 weeks early, so I was
Mhm.
working and didn't expect anything. And
Oh, I remember this story. This is
I
a good
was I
one.
was working on a guy who is a famous producer, older gentleman, like in his late 80s, fairly old. One
Oh,
of
wow.
my favorite patients. His first name is Arthur. And have you seen the movie The Holiday?
Yes.
It reminds me of that guy.
Okay.
He's like
Okay.
just the sweetest old man, like so successful, but like
Yeah.
so cool and easygoing. And we were finishing a full mouth rehab on him.
Hmm.
And I think we were doing the lower. And I had just given him double blocks.
Oh, wow.
Okay, double blocks. We were going to work on the whole arch. He was already in
Hmm.
provisionals, and I think we were refining preps or something. And I give him the injections, and I'm letting him sit. And I go and check my phone, and my wife says, "I think that my water just broke."
Oh, boy.
And so I'm like, okay, so I call her. I'm like, "What do you think?" She's like, "Yeah, I think it was like she described it," and I was like, "Oh yeah, I think that's it. Like I should leave." And I'm all nervous to go tell him, you know? And I'm like, Arthur, my wife just texted me, and he knew that she was pregnant because
Yeah.
I saw him every week for,
Hmm.
for full mouth rehab stuff. And I said, my wife just texted me, and I think her water just, and he goes, go, go.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
He didn't even say, and I can't remember if like I had already taken the provisionals off or something, but there was something that still had to be done. Like I think
Hmm.
I took the provisionals off, and he just went, go. Now, luckily, I was practicing with my partner Mark that day. Mark ended up just coming over, putting the provisionals on.
Sure.
But so cool, and I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
That
Oh, 100%.
he
Yeah.
wasn't thinking about himself. He knew that I was a person. He knew that I was, my first child. Like it's a huge deal. I can't miss the birth of my
Exactly.
son. And it's a great example of people understanding that you're a human. Now,
And
this doesn't
and I
always happen. Sometimes people forget that we're humans too, and we need to remind them.
and I also think to your point as well, I believe that the majority of people would act like Arthur.
Yeah,
And if somebody in that kind of situation didn't act like Arthur, then what does that tell you?
yeah,
What it tells me, now granted, this is coming from a little bit of a number of years under my belt. What it's telling me is, okay, I'm going to finish up whatever is appropriate with this case, and then I'm going to invite them to be successful from a dental perspective somewhere else.
right.
Because if that's the type of behavior they're going to display in a situation like you described or like I described, then it's what do we need to work on them for?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
So let's bring this all together on vacations. I think we talked about pre-planning,
Yep.
knowing your numbers so that you know when you can go,
Yep.
taking into account if your team is going to be off
Right.
and paid or not paid. Is it a time that's convenient for them? Now, you don't have to do that, but it's just a
Yep.
nice gesture if you can.
Yep.
Um,
Giving them stuff to do that's very specific while you're away if they choose to work or if you mandate them to work.
yep,
Yep.
yeah. And then mentally actually taking the time off
Yes.
because
And
that's going to allow you to be invigorated when you come back.
absolutely. And I think too, the one thing we didn't cover is the Sunday scaries, meaning the
Hmm.
day before you go back.
Yeah,
So, we often worry about things that never happen. The number's been floated around 85% of things we worry about never happen. So I used to get Sunday scaries really bad back in the day. And so what I finally learned to do, which really started to cure me of this, was I'd literally take a piece of paper and I'd write down what I'm afraid of and what I'm looking forward to. And then I'd say to myself, how likely is each of them to happen? And the ironic thing is, the stuff that I was looking forward to, I'd give it like 80, 90, 100% likelihood of happening. And the stuff I was worried about was like 20, 30, maybe 40%.
that's interesting.
And it did make me feel better.
Yeah,
And so when you're getting the Sunday scaries, the one of the best tactics is to get out of your head, put it on the paper to see what's actually rolling around between your ears to see how realistic it is. And I promise you, I don't have a magic wand to take it away magically, but I do believe that it will reduce the intensity of those Sunday scaries so that over time it'll be less and less and less impactful. I do believe.
Yeah, no, for sure. I love that. Well, guys, I hope you liked this. I hope that this was useful to you, especially if you're thinking about taking a vacation, which I would highly recommend.
Mhm.
Now, but maybe you want to take a vacation and have two of those days be hanging out with Martin and I in Dallas. So if you want to, that would be April 10th and 11th. We're doing our Lightside Live course. This is our transformational 2-day CE course. You get 12 CE units. And this is being hosted by MB2. MB2 is a DPO that has about 800 practices. So it's really initially being reserved for MB2 doctors. However, we talked to them and they said that if you're a part of the Carabelli Club, you can also join this course. Now, what is the Carabelli Club? The Carabelli Club is a buying group that my practice is part of. And this is going to save us about $20,000 this year with things like supplies, Amazon Business, everything from Skechers shoes to flights and rental cars. So it's really leveraging all of the group practice negotiations that MB2 has done and allowing people that aren't an MB2 doctor to use it. So it's totally a no-brainer. And if you join through our link in the show notes, you save 4 months on your first year, which is an incredible deal. So hopefully you become a Carabelli Club member and then you can join us at Lightside Live. If you're interested in anything that we do, go to wellnessanddentistry.com and I'll have all of our respective links, whether it's Martin's coaching, my online course, Martin's online course, our courses that we do together, anything that we're involved with, you'll see it there. So thanks for joining, and we'll see you on the next episode of Wellness and Dentistry.
Bye bye.